right? And that was based on WordNet and basically words and their linkages, graphs. But that was in 2005, right? And soon we have machine learning and LLMs, and now that word embedding is now blossomed and it's become the ChatGPT of the world. So basically the word then has associations with other words, just as we friends have association with other friends. So the word starts building its own network, and that network, the neural network, is able to represent it in a matrix of linkages. So that's how LLMs got built, right? As a next word predictor or whatever, right? Now, there is still, so there is this layers of semantics. So when you say, I have the alphabets, right? That's a kind of low level layer. And then when you say, okay, I have the word, again, when I'm talking to you, I'm making certain sounds to you. And then those sounds, you're translating it to your brain. And then it's thinking of it as units of words. And then those words build connections in your brain and some imagery develops, right? So although ChatGPT is good at giving you back, if you give certain words, it gives you back other words. So it kind of plays at the level of words, right? So it's still not into the actual real world of meaning and semantics, because which is outside your, alphabets. So I will be talking about that here and showing how this also I talked in Rio de Janeiro, the TUG conference, about the form and content, the contradictions between form and content. And you can see, like in the first lecture, Rob was talking about XML, and when you go into typesetting the XML, then there is this constant contradiction between pull and push between XML and that, like how do you make both ends meet, right? So in this talk, I'll be talking about the alphabetic script, and it's the semantic equivalent of that, the older one, which was the logo-syllabic script. So when you look at the oldest methods of communication, right? They were wanted to create some writing form, right? So you can't keep everything in memory because human brain is very transient. So they have to create things like books and all that. So in those days, this was the early form. So they created artwork on walls, they're the caves. So it seems like some silly thing they did there, right? But it's not. It's a profound this thing. So you can think of this as not really some painting or something. This is actually a line art version of the image. So you can think of it as I'll explain later, like how it's related to modern AI and all that. So that is one form where they had the bulls, right? But this one is more a lot of, description of a lot of interactive things there. It's a story, you can see. Now, so what this cave painting does is, for the human being, it creates they draw an immediate thing, whatever they see, but it has consequences in the sense that it enhances his consciousness, just as if we read books, our consciousness kind of enhances, right? So some way, if they keep looking at the wall and then they plan the next, hunt or whatever, so it has a tantric effect. And it's also displaced in space and time. So something happened yesterday, we did during the hunt. So I'm just capturing it in my brain and then drawing it out here. So it's also this thing, and also a lot of duplication, but reinforcing effect, so that when you go for the next hunt, it improves. What they're doing actually is drawing these outlines, because they're not photographic, they're the outlines, curves, right? And they actually, if you look at a convolution neural network they use for image recognition, it does the same thing. Because a lot of what we do is a lot of ourselves, it's more like we're seeing the mirror, whatever we create, it's actually our own mirror. So those curves eventually became ideograms. So if you see a convolution network, and what it sees, this convolution neural network in the AI, what it sees is if there is a photograph of the cat, it sees those outlines, right? And you can see the cave painting was doing just that outline. And you can even prove this more directly, because nowadays there are ways to print what you see in your brain. There are ways to print your brain, right? So there are printers that can print your, and you'll see that you'll have this, because it will not have the details, it will have just the outline, right? And that is a very big abstraction, because that's what these AIs so much we praise about, the AIs are doing this and that and all that. That's what our caveman's brain was doing. It had 200 neural networks connected, 200 trillion neural networks in our brain, and at very low wattage, And this is the stages of the CNN. You can actually make more of the outline, less of the detail, you can phase it out. Now I'm coming to the next stage of the evolution, where you had these outlines, but these outlines no more meant the actual bull, right? They're no more photographic. They no more mean the bull. So when you see the unicorn in the Indus, it no more means the bull, because it's got one horn. There's no animal with one horn, right? So you can see it's already something not real animal. So it means a trade symbol, right? So it's probably, and the right one is actually hair. Hair in Tamil means chevian, which means red, which probably means bronze or something else. So that abstraction is coming. So the immediate and direct photograph, the next one is the abstraction. And you can see in the left one, unicorn, the right one is there. But there you see those symbols, right? Those symbols mean two kinds of packages. The one is a perishable package, and the other one is a non-perishable package. So they're indicating that. So it's again not the package by itself, they're indicating the fact that the goods they're sending off in the Indus River, that goods they've been bartering over the countries from Afghanistan to Gujarat. So that goods is perishable and non-perishable. So this is a little bit of a complicated one. You saw in the cave painting also, you said very complicated story, right? So this was a complicated story in the cave painting. So similarly, you have a complicated one in the Indus, right? But this is a story, right? And this is actually somebody, now that I'm able to decipher the script, I'm able to say what it is. So this is actually one chief who's dead, who is now been mummified in that pot. So the next chief is taking over, and then 7 other chiefs approving the ceremonial takeover, right? So again, you can see a lot of abstraction. So the thing is being depicted, and you can see there are a lot of scripts up there. We'll go into that later. So this is 5,000 years back, right? So there was just trade, and there was no surplus. So there was no literary class or ideal class that could do literature and all that. So it's more about trade directly. What they do, they sell and barter from here and there, right? There's no coins yet. So this is the most interesting sculpture in Indus, you know. So this lady, it doesn't look like it's 5,000 years old, right? So this has been the great surprise of Indus. Like, you mean these people are so sophisticated? Yeah, they were, right? But you should not take it like it's some poetry or something. Just that they were the ordinary people of Indus, and they were like this, you know. And you can see the one on the right is a goat, supposed to be a goat. And goat connotates in Tamil to adu, which means dance, right? And the one below is actually marriage hall, right? So the one below is the two ends are being connected. It's called non. When you have two rounds connected, it's a what they call thread. Thali, it's called. So that one, and then this mortar and pestle sign is typically the marriage sign, but in Tamil it translates to this U this capital U is, by the way, U in Tamil, it comes from Ural. So U die in wooden non anji angel, wooden non angel is rest place. So it's basically marriage hall or something. So there is this human being trying to develop some kind of script, right? Some abstraction, which is part geometric, part ideographic, whatever. Then you have these tools also being developed. So these tools of, usage, the human beings start using tools. And they're becoming productive people making lots of tools. I can see the sophistication in the tools, Neolithic tools. So as they work on these tools, their larynx also start sympathizing to the sounds, right? And if you see, there is so in the link, how do I go to that link? There's a red thing there. Can you go to the link? Yeah. Yeah. Can you play this? Can you make sounds there?
No, you should have told us.
Okay. So it's. No, we'll come back to it. We'll play it later. Yeah? Probably keep ready that in the thing, maybe we can play. It's because it's an interesting thing. There is a click language in South Africa, right? So there is a click language in South Africa. There are 2-3 languages where it has sounds, extra syllables, which no other language in the world has, where it sounds like they were sounds of stones beating each other, right? So the initial, probably the primordial language that developed had all these click sounds, the stone tools they use and all that. But the speech kind of starts developing independently as a separate entity. And then there are these ideograms that are developing separately as a different stream. And they want to meet, right? Because you're making one communication through this process and then that communication process, probably in the same place in the cerebral position also. So then they somehow synchronize, right? So that is the initial language writing method called the logo-syllabic, where the root word kind of, we've not yet crystallized anything from the fluidity speech, right? So in the first process, we just crystallize the word bits, right? What they call root word bits. So graphings, and it has semantic associations also. It's just not only the sound, it has semantic. So it has dual character, both semantics and so the next bit is about the decipherment. So what is decipherment? I think of it as bouncing three balls at the same time, right? So you have, let's say, etymology dictionary with lots of phonemes, right? The old Dravidian, root words got by, going back the tree of all the Dravidian languages and go there. And then semantics, which means it should make meaning in the Indus, situation, trade or whatever. And then concordance, which means if you decide this is the phonemic value, then they should play together, right? So Fair Service, who's done excellent work on Indus many years back, this is like 30 years back. So he's defined decipherment like this. So it's roughly the same thing I said. Only thing is he's added the rebus, which is also a very important component, rebus. And then of course polyvalency, that anything you use must have multiple possibilities so that you can use smaller number of entities, right? So typically the Indus signs are like this, the complex ones, simpler ones are much simpler. The complex ones are like this. And if you've done, topology, then you can construct through, union and addition and all that. So it's a lot of topology, but very primitive topology, not the modern. So a 13-year-old from Kerala managed to do this, the first one, the top one. Second one is a little bit complicated. So the first one is, this is how you decompose the thing, right? I will explain to you what they are. They're actually not very difficult. This is actually the earned sign is the sign of the town. It's called Ur. It comes from a very simple thing. U is Ural, that is the U. And if you have two markers on it, then the two in Tamil is Iru. So when U and Iru join, it becomes the Ur. And Ur is you'll see that every town in India is called Ur. It's not only in South India, everywhere, like Gujarat or even Bengal, you have Kidirpur, this Pur, that Pur. So, and Ur is not really a town. It could be a village or a town. And you can see there through this that how the former town is transforming into complicated multiple towns. So you can see that Ur town, you can see three things imposed on it. The rightmost one is the Trishul, which is actually denotes in Tamil is Vel and Vel. Vel means hunter. And the second one is the guy who's making beads. He's the Aniyal, Tamil called Aniyal. And then that third one is the mosquito, is actually the guy who is stitching. In Tamil it's called, because they have two rounds, when they join through a line, it's called non, Tamil, Nuran. So the one that is entering in Tamil is called Nuran. And Nuran in Tamil means mosquito. Nulambu it's called. So this town is town of hunters, jewelry makers, and stitchers, tailors, right? So that's the ideographic connotation about the town. Basically, they're defining the town. And this one is, when you do this topology, you get that 3, 2, then top. So the first is 3 and 2, and then top. So mu, iru, male, porul. That caret sign is the big sign of, if you want to make something big, you put caret on top of it. So in Tamil, it's called Peru. And Peru, when it joins with the first one, the single sign is called the first one, right? The first. So when it joins with Peru and Mudal, it becomes Porul, right? So Mu, Iru, Mel, Porul, which is the mighty high one. So there seems to be some high bureaucrat up there, right? Which is a big discovery. So there seems to be some kind of class structure. So I will explain to you how this topology works. So you have all these simple signs, right? All these simple signs, how they join up, right? So the numbers are also, by the way, they are shapes. They were one shapes, but now they've been given a special status called numbers, right? So at one time they were still shapes. And these are not really quantifiers. There are some adjectives in Tamil, so we'll get to that. But how they add up is, so we have all these basic shapes. How they add up is 2 plus 3 is this, right? 3 plus 2 is this. And then that stand, whatever stand joins with 5, this becomes. So in Tamil, this is mu iru, which is muri. Muri in Tamil means bull, right? And you'll see ideographic connotations also of a look of a bull, So, and the other one is rake, but rake, this is stand, in Tamil is nilai. Nilai means steady, And then this one is the arrow also connotation. And this is pawn. Pawn is actually song. This pa is the sun, which is pagal. And then the small one is the in. It's called the null, in, small one. So when joins, it becomes pan. Pan is song, the singer or whatever. So you can also do multiply. So sometimes this is para. Para is the drum, right? The messenger of the town who's sending messages. So when this sun joins with the 2 in terms of multiplication, then it becomes para. And this one is 4 streets meeting in one place. So this is called vadi in Tamil. And then like that. So you can also multiply things. This is the complicated mathematics of Indus. So these symbols up there, you see, that's how they add. So when the pa and then the single one join, it becomes pal, which is the teeth, right? And pal has the elephant connotations in Indus. So pal is the important thing. And it also fish connotations. So it could either mean fish or the elephant. The elephant also has the teeth. So elephant has a very big teeth. So you can see the fifth one there, which is the cross, which is fixed on the head of the elephant. That's the palla. That's the ideographic representation of an elephant. So if you have a round and then 6 crosses, then it's the elephant. So the third one is, the first is pal, para, because 1 and the 2 join, 1 and the 3 join. And 1 and the 3 join, then it becomes pammu. Pammu is stitch in Tamil, in the Proto-Indo, Proto-Dravidian. So then you have Velappa, Pawn song and all. This is the mathematics of Indus, topology of Indus. And you can see that the flower is also the insect in Tamil. So poo and pol and poochi, so they all poo. So it also connotates with the sun, which is pagal pa, right? So they all in one team. So now comes the important one, which is the ural, right? And when it joins with the first one, then it becomes wool, which means not the fertility is wrong, It means, wool means inside, right? So you can see radiographically it's inside. The second one is 1 and the 2, then it becomes woor. That's the most important sign in this, which means that Vale and Indore, which is a complex town with multiple. One, then it becomes push, and tie is stitch. So when frog ends with 5, then it becomes tie order, right? Then you tie is double stitch. And when you have chip tie, it becomes irutai, is the leopard. So I'll show you a very beautiful line in that. It shows that. Tawai also means pot. So you use a softer than a Ravalai's pot, right? It also has tandi, so many garnish. So Thai is this fellow, right? Right? 6 strokes. 6 strokes in Tamil means Aru. Aru has a rebus connotation to river. Aru in Tamil also means river, right? And then this 7 ones staked out. They actually the hut. So hut in Tamil is kudi, and there are 7 huts. So the 7 is very important here because 7 in Tamil means Yeru, which also means Yeru, which means rise. So river rising over hut, right? So what I want you to understand is that we should not think of this as some Brahmi script or some modern script which came 1,000 years back, so-called alphabetic script. So these are not alphabetic scripts. So they are like Egyptian scripts. They are of ideographic, of logo-syllabic, that is syllabic, right? But they have a unique syllable value. So in that sense, they are surely syllabic. But how they denote the syllable is through the ideographic knowledge of the fact there are 6 lines. So that way you emit that sound called aru. But that aru could mean so many different things, right? It's the polyvalency. So you need polyvalency to make people literate, because if you have too many symbols, nobody is going to read your script, right? This is the most beautiful line I deciphered. I got started working in this very seriously 3 months back, right? Even 20 years back I was working, but never serious. But 3 years back it became so serious because it generated so much interest in me that I couldn't do anything else. So my wife keeps looking at me, oh God, he's into this. Right? So this is, the first one is the cheetah, not cheetah, it's the leopard, chirutai in Tamil. So I told you, when 2 tas join together, it's iruta. And then when a chip is added to it, in Tamil a piece of wood is called chip. When it's added, then it becomes chirutai. And this is this hunter, and then he's loading the bow. And the one in the middle, fear, is a very interesting bit. It has 2 bows, so it's a multiplication of 2 bows. So in Tamil it's called villa villa. Will is bow. When 2 join together, it's called villa villa. Villa villa means fear. So I was wondering, who is fearing, the hunter or the leopard? So it turns out the leopard is the one fearing, but their grammatical morphology is different. They place the cheetah first and then the fear here, but it means the leopard is fearing. So we have to understand their grammar in a different way. So, and another very crazy thing is, okay, you got 2 bows. What is the bloody tail doing there, right? So I tell you, there is nothing here which is done by mistake. Huh? These guys are bloody smart guys. And the tail, then I saw, okay, he's got a tail, so it means the bat. Bat in Tamil again means something similar to villa villa. It's called vavval, right? Again, villa villa, vavval, it connotates. So vavval, why they're putting bat there? So he's fearing, right? So they want to give you that eerie feeling, ambience they want to generate. So this is the place. It starts from Afghanistan and goes till Gujarat, right? And they were all trading massively. So massively, they didn't have any other activity. They were just trading, exchanging goods here and there. And I think they were mingling so badly, there was no identity possible other than Indus, because the trade was so hectic. Now I'm going to a completely different place. This is Elam, right? So that was the Indus. A little bit further away, you have Elam. In fact, there have been a lot of hypotheses that these two are the same languages, they were the same people, something. You know, the symbols also same. In fact, you'll be surprised they're totally unrelated. If you look at the symbols there, they seem very similar, right? Fortunately, Francois Dessert and his team has deciphered this completely, because they have parallel cuneiform text. So they're able to do this, some pottery and all that. So they're able to discern this, and then they find that they are phonemic. In the sense, each of these symbols have unique phonemes associated, right? Not ideographic, they're not logo-syllabic like that, right? So that's why you have much longer pieces of text. In Indus, the average length of a line is 4.5. So there are only 4 signs. So nobody in his mad sense of mind can think that it's alphabet. You won't even get half a word there, you know, right? But people are still obsessed with saying it is Sanskrit, it is Brahmi script, Tamil script. So this one describes kings, right? Elam is much more developed in the sense of surplus extraction, so they could afford kings. Whereas Indus is, I didn't have much surplus. They were hectic people doing trading, so they didn't have kings. Whereas Elam is different, culturally different. So they had kings. Those king names are depicted there, and they use the same kind of symbols, but it's a proto-alphabetic system. So they're almost down to vowels and consonants, but not perfect. They've not discovered consonants and vowels. It's still an ongoing process, right? But they got all this. So, but the lines are longer, much longer. They're like 10 characters or something. And this is typically how it is encoded, right? Now I'll show you something very interesting. What happened probably is that the same script that Indus people used, it switched to the Elam, right? They started using Elam, and the Elam developed it in a very different way, trying to make it alphabetic from the ideographic system, right? So this is the most important part in this lecture. So you see this is the Indus interpretation. So the first one is Ko is the fort. The second one is the cattle farming area. The third one is the three mountain, which is actually Afghanistan. You can see the 3 triangles. They're supposed to be Mummalai, which is 3 mountains. It denotes Afghanistan. And then Anial, which is the thing, and then Anjal. So all these things are also mirrored in Elamite, but they mean very different things. They're phonemes, right? So they're almost like vowels and consonants. So whereas here they're very different, right? Here Palli, for example, 192, Palli means place, where people rest and all that. And then Tatti is the carpenter making Tatti and all that. Tattan in Tamil, both carpenter and the bronze makers, they're all similar because they're all considered Tattan because they beat things. So when you Tattu, becomes Tattan. So Pammu is stitch, and then these are our ways. And the 321 is very interesting. I already said it's thread. So 2 eyes joining together. So it's called non. The na and the na joins, it becomes non, right? Now I'm coming to the end of it. So Ferdinand Saussure was the first guy who declared what a language is, right? Before that, it was a mysterious thing. He said that there is a signified and there is a signifier. And most importantly, he said the signifier has to be arbitrary. It cannot have bloody ideographic connotations. The reason is, if you did that, you'll be stuck with a script which will only work in that culture, in that corner of the world. It cannot generalize. So this ideographic connotation has to be cut. Then only you'll be free to trade that script anywhere, right? It generalize. So, and then at certain moment they were able to crystallize, because you can see the methodology is improving, so they are able to crystallize. So I'm not making fun of this, I'm serious. So when you get that sophistication of crystallizing metals, you also able to crystallize your language. And so they were able to crystallize abugidas, which is actually the consonant clusters, consonant pieces. The vowels have not yet been pulled out, right? They were the first ones, the Semitic ones, abugidas, And the way we write Indian languages is abugida, right? And then later on they added the vowels, so you get the alphabets of Greek and Roman. So the vowels were given a independent status, the first class citizen, So now, have we got any script like Indus? Yes, we have. So that one has been cut, and we got all these alphabets, Greek and Roman. But, yeah, the ideography still maintains its roots through the Chinese script, hand script. The hand has ideographic connotations, and then you have the phonetic attributes added on top of it. But if you do that, you have a very complicated system of 70,000 characters, right? That's what you end up with. Like, if you did not cut that root and then created alphabets, that's what you'll end up with. Like if you had continued that Indus script into India, you would have had a script similar to the Chinese script, which is both, where you keep both form and the content. You are like, you have the both video and all that. And that's where the AI world is heading. If you see GPT-5 is heading, where you have both models, the graphic model and the text model is now going to join, right? And that's where I will end my lecture.
Thanks very much. We're basically at time, but maybe there's time for one quick question as the next presenter comes up and organises themselves. So
Hello. Yeah, so multiple comments, but I would like to ask about the thing you mentioned about Saussure. So Saussure's signifier and signified actually doesn't refer to scripts. Like his model of language is very different, and it does not at all talk about scripts. Also, I feel like there were many interesting points you have mentioned, but like it would have been better if you could have cited some framework from, say, psychology, history, archaeology, which are the disciplines that are developed for the targeted study of many of your speculations. So we would have loved to see some citations and some theoretical frameworks on which you have grounded your work. But I mainly wanted to point about Saussure's language model, and I don't think it means the same thing you were trying to say. So maybe you can have a look before you submit your paper.
Yeah, we can have a discussion later, but this is more a side work. My main work is in GitHub, right? I've given the references there. And I've made a 1 hour, 15 minutes talk in RMRL about the whole linguistic because I don't want to put it here. No, it'll be too big. It'll be 2 hours or whatever, right? So this is a quick word views to my work, right?
Great, thanks very much.